In the wake of the first round of cuts at Flyers training camp, it appears that 3 bubble players have set themselves above the rest. I'm Charlie O'Connor with PHLY Sports, and these are your Flyers post-practice notes. So yesterday was the first full day off for the players at Flyers training camp since it began last week, and because of that, the Flyers dealt with their first round of cuts. They were ultimately announced on Wednesday morning, right before practice. 14 players were cut. Mostly guys you would expect. There were a few moderately big names. Carson Bjarnason, who I thought had a really good camp, but never had a real chance of making the team. He was sent back to his junior team. Spencer Gill also had a good camp. John Tortorella today specifically noted he was impressed by Gill. He went back to his junior team as well. So there were no surprise names in the cuts, I would say. Again, a lot of juniors guys, some guys in the AHL, guys who might end up in the ECHL, but there was maybe one surprise name that wasn't in the cuts. Jett Luchanko, 2024 first-round pick. He's still here, although I will say, if you've been paying close attention to camp, if you watched him play on Sunday in Washington, it shouldn't come as a surprise because he is having himself a very, very strong camp, and he's very much still in the mix for an NHL roster spot. Now, why would I say Luchanko is still very much in the mix for a roster spot? Well, the Flyers showed their hand a little bit today. Before, there were 3 groups. There was enough players at camp that they could run 3 separate practice groups. Today, it was down to 2 groups, and one group was very much an NHL group, had pretty much all the NHL locks, all the guys you are certain are going to make the team, including Matvei Michkov, who still very much is on track to make the Philadelphia Flyers. But there were 3 guys on the bubble who joined that group. One was Jett Luchanko, and then there was also Olle Lycksell and Eetu Ginning. Now, the story with Luchanko is simple. As I mentioned, he's earned it. He's been great at development camp, at rookie camp, so far at main camp, had a really good preseason debut. Now, he's still a very young 18-year-old. There's no guarantee he's going to make the team, but at least as of now, he's keeping himself in the mix. He's playing with NHL guys. Got a nice little initiation today from Rasmus Ristolainen, who was quite physical with him in drills. But so far, Luchanko deserves to be here. And at the very least, he's making the Flyers think about the possibility of giving him an NHL look to start the year. The second player who also was with the NHL group who started camp on the bubble, Olle Lycksell. Now, unlike Luchanko, Lycksell is a little bit older. He's 25. He's got NHL experience. But this is kind of his time to make an impression. He's no longer waiver exempt, so he would have to pass through waivers and be made available to every NHL team in the league if they want to send him down to the AHL. That maybe just gives the Flyers a little bit more incentive to keep him around and possibly keep him as the extra forward on the NHL roster. Now, I wouldn't go so far as to say Lycksell has had a great camp so far. He's had a fine camp. He played in the back-to-back preseason games. John Tortorella praised his performance in Game 1 on Sunday. He did score a goal in the third period in that game. Said that basically everybody in the game in Montreal on Monday looked tired, so didn't ding him for that performance. But I wouldn't say Lycksell has been dominant. I think Luchanko has popped more than Lycksell has. But, again, Lycksell's older. Lycksell has played in the NHL and at least held his own to the degree that he didn't look completely out of place. So this is kind of his time, and it appears he's getting himself a long look. And then, finally, there's Eetu Ginning, who appears to have a leg up on specifically Emil, who probably came into camp as the most likely defenseman to earn a spot. It looks like Ginning, at least for now, may have jumped Andrae. And Ginning could potentially, if the Flyers choose to keep 8 defensemen, he does appear to be the guy who is, right now at least, first choice to be that 8th defenseman on the roster. There was also a piece of off-ice news, off-ice contract news today. Eetu Makiniemi, the goalie who was on a professional tryout with the team at camp, did get himself a contract, a 1-year, 2-way deal with the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, does this mean he's necessarily going to be in the NHL mix? Not really. Right now, a 2-way contract implies he gets paid less in the AHL versus the NHL. Usually those contracts are given to guys who are going to spend a lot of time in the AHL, and I would expect him to form a pairing with Cal Petersen in the AHL. Really, all this boils down to is the fact that Alexei Kolosov is not here, and there's no reason to expect he's going to show up anytime soon. Makiniemi functionally is Kolosov's replacement in the AHL. And really, if the performances of Petersen and Makiniemi on Monday, which ultimately got him the contract, I guess that performance gave that last little bit of convincing for the organization, Makiniemi outplayed Petersen by a non-insignificant margin on Monday in Montreal. So if that continues to be the case in the AHL this year, goalies get hurt. Whether it's Erson, whether it's Fedotov, someone's going to get a little banged up. And maybe Makiniemi, now that he's under contract, he could functionally be the third goalie if he outplays Cal Peterson, and he could get in NHL games at some point. Just don't expect him to start the year with the team. Next up for the Flyers on Thursday night, they have their home preseason debut against the New York Islanders at the Wells Fargo Center. That's it for Flyers post-practice notes today. I'm Charlie O'Connor with PHLY Sports. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
We all silly like the mayor.